Cowboys Nation? Welcome back to another episode of StarChasers, Girls Talk Ball, Offseason Convos. As you know, it's your girl, Cravin Cowboys, and as always, I got my girl Star in the building. How you doing tonight, sis?
What's up? What's up, everybody in the chat? Glad to see everybody. Glad to be back for another episode of Star Chasers Girls Talk Ball. We have a lot to talk about today. As far as y'all know, we missed last week, so we want to talk to you guys about what happened as far as like rookie minicamp and our expectations as far as who's going to be the starters, and also
Mike Zimmer. We finally heard from Zimmer.
Also they had a lot of a lot of coaching interviews, if you will. They pretty much interviewed the whole entire coaching staff, so we want to talk to you guys about that as well. But before we do, please like the video, please share the content as well. Please subscribe as well to Mickey and I's YouTube channel. Mine is StarGazerSports. Mickey's is Cravin Cowboys. But let's get into it.
like my girl Star said, like it's just been so much news coming out. Like it's crazy. Like just weeks ago, like even though we were missing weeks, like just weeks ago we were like trying to find something to talk about, right, Star? We were trying to figure out what we could try to speculate about, what even to see what we could get in the draft. And now here we are, maybe like not even a month later, and it's just like you said, they did so many interviews, coaches, players, positional coaches, and I don't know if I'm tripping. Like I know I'm just now really getting into doing content and things like that, but I don't know if I've seen so many coach interviews to where they really like, I know it's been so many, new coach hires and things like that. But like you said, it's just been so much information for us to kind of grasp onto. Like I said, not from players, not just coaches, but positional head coaches, and also hearing their plans, not just Zimmer's plans or even McCarthy's plans, but hearing their own personal plans, their personal ideas, how they want to interact with the players, with the other coaches. Like it just seemed like they're already, just days in almost. It seemed like they're already like kind of meshing well with each other. Just already, I'm sure they've already, even just before now. I'm sure it's not just all becoming together now, but they've already kind of gotten their ideas on paper and kind of just they have similar philosophies. They may not like even some of the coaches mentioned like, hey, we may not always what we want in that particular moment, but we still can come back with our heads high, still come together and work together, and still try to get the best out of these players.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think like ultimately, I think they usually do the coaches interviews like during this time, but I think in year like especially last year, I felt like they didn't really get. For all the rest of now usually the main coordinators like Schottenheimer and stuff, they give a lot of time, but I think it was important to hear from people like Jeff Sagonia, our new defensive line coach, Greg Ellis, our assistant defensive line coach, Zimmer, then we got to hear from, not only Schottenheimer, but we also got to hear from the run game coordinator, Jeff Blasco.
Helping out.
The DB coach, Clay Matthews. We got to hear from Al Harris for a longer period of time because now Al Harris is our assistant head coach, and so Lunda Wells, and so they really gave the coaches a lot of them a lot more time than I think that they had gave in years past. So I thought it was a really
even
unique.
I'm going to cut you off, but even some of the scouts they had in the building who were taking those trips to see those players. I mean, I know it was back during the draft time, but being able to hear them kind of put their kind of their words, kind of their opinions, of what they had to go through when they had to meet these players. Get down to the 30 visits. When they were kind of, I think I forget his name right now, but I forget what coach and actually the position he coaches. But he said that it was kind of actually hard for him to get emotionally attached to these players because he knew that some of these players you're not going to see down the line. You're not going to be able to get all these players you meet, and it was kind of interesting because they kind of sometimes put the human element on it. So it's like you want to get you get excited for these players coming in because you know how young they're bright-eyed and they get so excited about the game. But then it's like, hey, if you don't get to get them, you kind of, both sides kind of feel the way and things don't work out.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I think, it was interesting as well to hear from, like you said, the scouts. And what's up, Nisi? What's up, Bruce? Got the toxic juice. Glad to glad to see you guys in the chat tonight. But yeah, I think, when it comes to the scouts and stuff like that, I did like how they did allow us to hear from the scouts, even in the during the draft, allowing us to hear directly from the scouts and kind of like, the processing and what it was about these different prospects that, they felt like these are guys that we definitely want to bring, into the building, and what they were looking at and their thoughts. Because I think a lot of times, with prospects, we have our own thoughts as content creators. The fans have their own thoughts of prospects. But I think the scouts, obviously, they have a different opinion. And obviously, those scouts, we're not, and I'm not down in any of the content creators, because obviously some of us can get interviews from these prospects and different things like that. But the scouts, obviously, they're doing extensive research.
Yeah.
Extensive research into these prospects, right? Yeah. So they do have a different feel, and how they see the prospect can be different than how we see the prospect. I know when I think his name is Mitch LaPointe, the director of scouting, he had said that reason why they chose Tyler Guyton over I can't remember the other guy. Reason why he had chose they had chose Tyler Guyton over Mary Smith, because they felt like Tyler Guyton was more experienced. They felt like Tyler Guyton was more polished. They felt like he was better in the run game. But, you listen to content creators, a lot of people don't think Tyler Guyton is good in the run game. They're like, yeah, he's good at pass blocking. And, they think that, he's a lot of content creators are like, he's not ready, from what we've seen on film, But, of course, Mitch LaPointe says we chose him because we think he's ready. You know what I'm saying? So I think, it's all about, I think when you get insight, you can understand, okay, this is why the team ended up choosing this specific prospect. You know what I'm saying? So, and Bruce, you're right. It has been rough. This offseason has been rough.
Yes, for sure.
It's getting a little bit more rough on us. It's going to be rough until after preseason.
And rough to start out. Let's be honest. We saw, and honestly, I'm not like terribly, afraid of the first, 6 games before our bye in week 7. But some of these teams, number one, we haven't seen in so many years, and number two, that's the point. But times two, like these teams have changed. It's not just the Saints who, like, granted, they do have Derek Carr now, but they do still have that run game. They do still have that defense, even just up to last year. And even, of course, we're going to see the Ravens, and like I said, of course, the Lions once again. So it's just, like you said, so yeah, it's going to be rough. Like, for us we're not going to know what we're going to see. We're not going to know what we're going to see. We're not going to know what kind of team we're going to be up until week 1. And then even after that, because of the teams we are going to face early in the season. And then that's one thing I will say, sometimes you don't always see, and that goes for all teams. Like, I guess that's one thing I'll say for me is a bright spot. I guess it's because some of these teams we're not going to get the best version of these teams because it is early in the season. So that's one kind of bright spot I will take from it. But at the same time, everyone has the same amount of time to prepare for the season. So even if you don't get their best type of game, it also depends on how much your guys have worked at their game. And especially with some of the organizations who may already be kind of further along, we may have a leg up when we do face the Saints because they have been going through turmoil as far as putting their team together. But on the other side of things, we may be going against an unfamiliar opponent like the Ravens. But they have had some of those guys for a certain amount of time. Even though they just got Henry, but he's had time in the league, so Henry doesn't need that much time to be putting with a new team. So it's just like it depends on how each team is going to be at that point in the year when we do face them.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think and I said personally, like, it's going to be rough because I think obviously with the contract situation that's looming between CD and Dak, right? Those those story headlines are going to be difficult if you don't already prepare yourself to block out the noise and really focus on what's going on the field as far as who is doing what, who's improving, who's looking like they're making the push to be a starter or not. That's why I hate that this offseason and how this whole situation has been handled. One of the big storylines, Dak versus Trey Lance. Even though personally, I don't believe there's any battle between Dak and Trey Lance. Not because I think Trey Lance is a bum or anything like that. I think Trey Lance has improved, based on what I'm hearing from the coaches, based on what I heard from Dak. He has improved himself compared to the film that we saw of him last preseason when he was with San Fran. But as you know, the issue with Trey Lance is not that he doesn't have the ability, it's about his experience. He doesn't have the experience. That's why Dak is at a place where we say quarterbacks in his prime. It's because Dak is at the point where he's seen everything. But of course, that's not what's going to be said, right? We're going to have a media frenzy with our local media. And I am pleased with how they handled. What's up, Jameson? I am pleased the way so far of how the local media has handled this whole Dak and Trey Lance thing. Right. Doesn't seem like Trey Lance is being overhyped or anything like that. It just seems like they're just doing straightforward reporting based off of what they see. And that's what I want to see, But I expect when training camp comes, it may, the way the media may spin stuff may really try to rev up the competition. And so I'm really hoping that we can go ahead and get Dak signed at least by the end of July, beginning of August, so that we can focus, on the season. Because I really do think that, the 2024 season is a season of growth for us. I think, and Jerry had said something about this in the draft. He said the steps that we've taken, the draft class, and the steps that we've taken as far as the offseason is what needs to be done in order for our team to get better. And I think a lot of people are like, how, what do you really mean, Jerry? Because I know, him saying we got to do more with less and different things like that. But I think what Jerry meant was there were issues, but we were trying to see with the past roster, can we get to a Super Bowl with this roster? The answer was no. It just wasn't the case. Now, roster and coaching have to deal with that, right? And of course, we got a different coach. We got Zimmer and stuff like that. But I do think that, at a certain point, when you have three chomps at the bit with all these old vets and you don't get it done, this is a young man's game. You got to move to the younger players and see what they got. You know what I'm saying? Because I said, I did a show about it. The younger players just have a different zeal. They have a different type of drive because they're still trying to prove themselves, When you have the vets and stuff, they're on their third and fourth contract. Yeah, every player in the NFL wants to win the Super Bowl. But I do think that past a certain amount of time, you just want to keep getting your bags, right? You just keep getting your money. That's why you see players go to a terrible team for a lot of money because they're like, at the end of the day, I'm playing for the money first, and then if I win a Super Bowl, that's great. So
and that's
either way, go ahead.
That seems to be kind of something that's kind of be like a recurring type theme in the NFL. You see it, like you say, you see a lot of these players go to these other teams where that's like they wouldn't even necessarily get as much coverage. Like you said, they're still able, number one, like you said, play for the bag, but also still be able to play the game that they love. I mean, how many players, you hear talk about being forced out of the game early, unfortunately, sometimes due to injuries, but sometimes these guys will get another chance. And you hear about some of these guys, unfortunately, not saying T.Y. Hilton, because like he said, he chose to stay because he wanted to spend time with his family, and other players do the same thing, but some of these players who sometimes have to wait until after the season starts, or have to wait until week 8. You have to wait until possibly even later than that. They just want to be brought in maybe for a playoff run. So don't you think some of these guys still want to play to the fullest ability? Sometimes they miss out on that too. So they love this. Sometimes it does get down to that point of any means necessary. But like you said, start at the same time. They also gotta start thinking like you mentioned in the video the other day about Michael Parsons. Like sometimes you do gotta start doing things to where like, hey man, like it's not just about. I'm not saying it's not just about the game, but it's about the game. It's about my future. It's about what I can do after I feel like you mentioned in the Parsons deal about what I can do after I get out the game, or if I am unfortunately forced out early because of something crazy, because of contact issues, or because of injury. Even something that's like something can be like a small injury where he just can't quite come back from that unfortunate injury. Mm-hmm. You don't feel like that player you once were before. So like just like you said, sometimes it is about the stability. It is about not just necessarily about the bag, but hey, what can I do to just stabilize my future going forward? At least have done some of these players.
Yeah, and I don't think we plan to talk about it, but we can keep talking about this. I think the focus is just for the players. Back then, football was really all these players had, and I think some older-minded players. What's up, Steven? Glad to see you. I think some older-minded players think that was better. Because they're like, you couldn't focus on anything else. It was just football. Now players are so focused on their individual brands, and they got their podcasts, and they're doing all these deals on the side. And, people are mad at the college prospects because they can transfer, and now it's NIL. They give their money, and everybody's the older generation is upset about it because they feel like you're taking the focus away, and these young kids don't care about football, like they used to. But I have to, what I said was like, listen, guys, that all sounds good in theory, but you gotta look and see what the NFL is, what these college teams are. For all these years, they've been able to use these players up. They use them up. They throw them out once they get an injury or once they got a behavior issue or whatever the hell. Once they can't, it's not the same, and they throw them out and they replace them with another person.
Something new and shiny comes along. So we want this, and so we're done.
Exactly. I mean, look at our situation now. Our quarterback was pretty much the true league MVP, but you still have people that are secretly pulling for Trey Lance. You got people who are secretly pulling for Cooper Rush. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's how the NFL is. You know what I'm saying? So these players need more than just the team.
But just so that we're not biased, even other quarterbacks don't even really get a chance in the league because after 1 year they don't do well coming out of the draft. So they want to keep moving on to the next quarterback coming out of the draft. So look,
the
time to develop.
Yeah, I mean the 2021 quarterback class is a prime example. The league now wants you to be ready to go. They give you about a couple of years. If you don't improve by then, they're out. Instead of looking at, okay, what are we doing, that's not helping this quarterback, they just see the quarterback as a problem and they get rid of them. But I'm like, if you look at what the NFL is, which is a $1 billion industry owned by predominantly white males, they're working to try to get more diversity in ownership. I know there's some women, but I said predominantly, keyword predominantly white males, right? That's what it is, right? And that have used predominantly black men, you know what I'm saying? Right. Not making this a race issue. I'm just saying what it is. But even if you take the race out, using men, period, right, for entertainment, for financial gain, but they don't really care about these players' future. They only care about what that player can do for their team at that time. That's why these players have to worry about more, because look at somebody like Antonio Brown. He's filing for bankruptcy. This is a guy that made over $88 million while he was in the NFL, but now he said he only has $50,000 worth of assets. Do you understand what I'm saying? The NFL, as Micah said, means not for long. You have to have yourself set up in other ventures, because if you don't, then you're left with nothing. Then you're left broke. And then a lot of these players, the injuries that they face, CTE, all of this type of stuff, and the NFL don't even want to pay for players struggling with CTE. That's why there's been lawsuits against the NFL. So I think if people would look at the NFL like that and stop looking at it as in this vacuum of, football. It's like, you're looking at it as a fan in a vacuum, but you're not really looking at what the NFL is. Because if you did, I don't think that you would treat these players away, like treat Micah the way he's, or not Micah, because Micah said he's not holding out for money. He's doing his individual training, but CD, right. He's holding out. People looking down on CD because of that, and saying, oh, some people say you're selfish or whatever, or, Dak's selfish because he wants to be, he wants to get paid his value. Like, I think people would stop thinking that type of nonsense if they actually saw the NFL for truly what it is. And I think players like Micah are trying to make it better, right? In the sense of, I'm trying to create a platform for young athletes, or pave the way for young athletes to where they are, what I said, stealing the power back from the owners, where it's like, listen, I have money outside of this, so I don't have to be probed and prodded and sullied and denigrated by y'all because, I can't hear you. I was wondering, I was like, I can't hear the background music and I can't hear you. Did you mute yourself?
No, I'm still here. I
don't know. I cannot hear you.
Me?
Okay, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But anyway, what's up, David? But that's my guy, David. I appreciate you, brother. But yeah, I think ultimately, the NFL is a money-making machine. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that the players, they shouldn't have to give up football in order to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? They should be able to make a difference inside of the organization and get things inside of the NFL to be more fair for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I hate how these owners are trying to, diminish some positions, and because it's just not right. Like, these players are putting their bodies and lives on the line for our entertainment, and y'all trying to cheapen their value. Like, what kind of BS is that? Because y'all don't want to pay them. Y'all don't want to pay the money that's not even y'all's money as owners. This is salary cap money. Right. So anyway,
it's terrible. And actually, another point to your Parsons video, and this actually wasn't brought up in the light as far as injuries or anything like that. But actually, once guest of the show, Aisha Morrison, I heard her on the Girls Talk Boys Talk podcast about a week ago, actually bringing up Micah being the president of the Bleacher Report, and she kind of brought a similar point, saying that us even as adults, I'm saying, even though these are younger kids, young kids coming into the game, even us as adults, we have day jobs, quote unquote, and when you come home, you wanna I'm saying, you wanna lay back, you wanna chill. You have other side things you may want to do. You may get on Instagram, or you may hey, you want to make a little bit of money on the side, or you may even hang out with friends, or even have other business ventures. Well, these are young kids who may want to do the same thing. And she brought up the point of Micah being the president now of Bleacher Report is, some people may take it negatively. It's like you were talking about him maybe not focusing on the football on the field, but it's just like, these are just other business ventures that these guys had the opportunity because they played with football. And like, even with Dak, doing things with a faith fighting finish. I'm saying, him having that
right.
For him to get his message out, but. I mean, of course not, but people are going to say, why are you doing that? That's not taking away your focus on the field. You know what I'm saying? So for us to, people who may think of it as negative, but even, last year for me, I'm just speaking for me, thinking of this podcast being as a distraction. Like, I mean, I do a podcast, me and you, we do podcasts, other content creators, they do things. Is that distracting from your day job? You know what I'm saying? We don't ask that of other human beings who are doing that as a way to, relieve stress or to get through the day. So, these are just ventures that these guys want to look to, that they want to do off the field that may take away the stresses of their quote unquote day job of them playing football. You know what I'm saying? This is what they have time for in the off season. You know what I'm saying? Because during the season, they have, they're even away from their families. You know what I'm saying? So these are just things that, just to give people another perspective of how to look at these things. Like, this is what these guys want to do, like you said, not just as a type of thing to look for the future, but even as of right now, something that they can, look to as a stress reliever for the game. A stress reliever from the day to day, having to worry about training and focusing, doing things like that. Just something for other fans.
Yeah.
When they have a negative perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that life is just more than football for us, like you said, as content creators, for the players, for the coaches, for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, football is a career, but there has to be life outside of it. And again, when you have somebody like Micah, I call him the president now because he is the president of Bleacher Report. When you have somebody like Micah, who's the president now, when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, the way we've been covered in media, has been pretty unfair. And that's what Micah started speaking out more about, and he's unique because not a lot of Cowboys players even have the balls to say that. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that Micah says that people don't have the balls to say. And I think a lot of people say, hey, Micah, shut up. But I think I don't care what I always say. Listen, I don't care if a player wants to rap, be a model, whatever, be a podcaster, be the president of CEOs of companies. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is that, one, what Micah's doing is to make a difference for not only himself, but it's bigger than himself. Like he said, young athletes, but as well, as long as these players, like you said, Dak has Faith 5 finish and all of this stuff. But as long as these players are not allowing what's outside to affect their on-field play, then these players should be allowed to do whatever they want. And as I said, everybody does not have the capacity to wear multiple hats, but a lot of people do. I wear multiple hats. A lot of people have the capacity, but some people don't. And if, some players may not have the capacity, and those are the players that you see, they not on podcasts. You know what I'm saying? Because podcasts really should be reserved to me. If and it's different here in Dallas because I said, dang, we the only people that got backups, low-key started podcasts and stuff like that.
I ain't never seen so many stars. Even Hankins for a little bit. I'm like, Hankins, when you get but okay.
Yeah, Hankins, now Hoffman got one. It's like, you don't really see that. In the other teams, the best players, like Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Fred Warner, these are perennial Pro Bowl, all-pro players.
Exactly.
So Micah Parsons is Pro Bowl. He's been in the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro every year since he's been in the NFL. So I think if there's anybody who can run his mouth or anybody who can have a podcast, it could be Micah Parsons. But if you're a backup, fighting for position, should you be having a podcast? I don't know about that. But, we'll see. But you know how it is in Dallas. Dallas... It makes me think that Dallas still does. It doesn't have the same appeal that it used to. Yeah. But I do think that there are certain things that backups can do here in Dallas that they can't do in other markets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I will say that. But anyway, I think let's transition to.
We just vibing, you guys. There, we always vibe. You know how we do. But we just want to briefly, before we actually jump into our like you talked about at the beginning of the show, we're going to take a look at the wide receiver room because, even, and it's actually, I don't know if you want to talk about the defense first or you want to talk about the wide receivers first.
We can talk about the defense first.
Okay. Yeah, because last week, like you said, we finally heard from Zimmer, his plan for the linebackers to the D-line, bringing in Ellis, bringing in Coach Z. I think I heard today Coach Z, I'm saying, because I don't want to mess up his name, about him actually delegating, him to Coach Z to Mozzie once he returns, getting Ellis, notched on Marshawn Nealon, hoping, Nealon hopefully will take to D-Law. Hopefully they can all get their hands up. Pretty much, and it's something I love. Like I mentioned on my show the other day that's just about really not necessarily Zimmer having to delegate directly to the player. It's about number one, relieving the pressure, not necessarily pressure, but I can't think of the exact word for it, but actually that Zimmer doesn't have to delegate to every single player on the team. Even though he's coming in, he's new. Yes, he does have experience, but does he really have time to go to every player on the defense and be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, this, that, and the third? No, I'm going to bring in my guys who I'm familiar with, Ellis, who went to a training camp with me, Coach Z, who I've worked with before. I'm saying, no, I'm going to get these guys who I know, who, Coach Z, who I didn't know. I just learned that he's the one who coached up, who was it, Allen and Payne on Washington?
Yep, Allen and Payne. Yep, that's true. He was the defensive line coach, which had over the years, been one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. So, yep.
Right. And to know that he's the one who built that up, if we can get DTs halfway up where Allen and Payne was, like, You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just love that. Number one, they brought in guys that he was familiar with, and just to know that these are the guys who are going to be hands-on with our players, and also to the fact, and no, he's not a coach, you know, in name or position, but also bringing in someone like Kendricks who can delegate how Zimmer is in his practices, and also that he can let his players know what he's looking for. So it's kind of really just taking all those little minute details that Zimmer will have to worry about going to a new team. It takes out all the kind of the middleman stuff and just lets him know that he has these guys who number one are familiar with him, but who also know that that's going to get his message out without him having to worry about opening his mouth every 5 minutes to every player on the team.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think it was very important for Zimmer to get his guys in here, not just the players, but also the coaches.
Yeah.
That can implement his style, because like you said, he's a coordinator. He does not have time to sit down with each player one-on-one every day and figure out, you know, all of this stuff. You know, he's got to rely on his coaches who are under him to evaluate these players, see what these players need, and then, you know, help him formulate a plan for each player so that each player can max out on the, you know, when he calls their number, they can max out on the field. You know, like you said, one coach. First of all, I am glad that we were able to keep Al Harris, because I do think clearly Al Harris, you know, what he has done for our defensive backs is phenomenal, and it's not what any defensive back coach has done in the league, right? You know, he's produced 2 back-to-back NFL interception leaders. So, you know, obviously we wanted to keep him, but I do think, you know, it's an important note about how, you know, our philosophy, let's talk about, you know, Zimmer's philosophy, because one thing that was parroted from each defensive coach that they interviewed was that the philosophy between Mike Zimmer and Dan Quinn is totally different philosophies.
Right.
And, you know, if you remember, Dan Quinn's philosophy was play fast and physical. That was his philosophy. We want our players to play fast. We want them to be physical players. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And also turnovers. That was the main focus of Dan Quinn's defense. And when you hear from Zimmer, he's like, listen, we're, you know, Zimmer's like, listen, it's great to get interceptions. It's great to get sacks. But we're going to focus here on the fundamental. In my system, we focus on the fundamentals, right? We focus on those first. And if we get sacks, if we get interceptions while we're doing the fundamentals, then great. But he wants to focus more on technique. So I think you know, Zimmer is a defensive back coach. He coached Prime Deion Sanders. So he is going to focus on teaching these corners a different technique, to where, hey, if you got the ball skills, you go head up and reach for that ball and get it out of the air. But also he's going to teach them about, you know, mirroring and, you know, how to have the good eyes and good hit, all of that stuff that you need to be able to be what they call lockdown or cover corner. That's more of Zimmer's style, lockdown cover corners, you know. And he said that I've never had 2 great defensive backs. He ain't lying. He has never had 2 great defensive. He's never had 2 all-pro cornerbacks. So it's going to be a different, you know, his defense is going to be maximized because he hasn't had the talent that he has right now, you know. And another thing is Zimmer's focus, you know, is stopping the run, you know, because if you stop the run, then you can stop the pass, right? He believes that rushing the passer is a privilege. Now, Dan Quinn would say that, but you could clearly see on the field that's not his philosophy. It's you stop the run on the way to getting the quarterback. Right. But Zimmer's like, no, we're going to stop the run first, right? And then we'll worry about getting sacks and everything. So I think, and another thing with Zimmer's defense, is intelligence. You have to be really smart in order to run Zimmer's defense, because he's going to have us playing more zone under Dan Quinn, we were primarily a man team. Doesn't take a lot of cerebral, is to be a man team. So it's I mean, that's people have said, I didn't say it, but I think it was Bobby Belt that said our defense's football IQ was dumb under Dan Quinn. They just
and a lot of guys
see it in playoffs
for themselves. They're playing hero ball,
Yeah, that's another thing. Zimmer is, you do your job so that the other person can do their job. You never heard Dan Quinn say that. Dan Quinn never talked about the team. He always talked about, I want each of my players to play fast and physical. Exactly. So, and get turnovers. You know what I'm saying? And they played that way. It was a lot of hero ball. Yeah. And under Zimmer, we're not going to see hero ball. We're going to see discipline. We're going to see working as a team. We're going to see the fundamentals. Well, at least that's what we hope to see. And that's what they say that they're going to do. Yeah. And we're going to focus a lot on technique as well. Technique, especially on the defensive line.
And I think another thing, just to add on to what you were saying, Star, another thing that would kind of add on to these guys' sharpness, not only, I'm sure, on the practice field, but also in the games. Like, another big difference between the two is Zimmer mentioned he's actually going to be on the sideline instead of being up in the box. So if these guys do mess with him,
that's another thing. Like, there's so many nuggets, but it's another thing. He's going to be on the sideline.
Exactly. It's one thing if you at school, you do something bad. Oh, when I get home, I'm going to get in trouble. But I get these next few hours to kind of, to kind of soften it a little bit. But you do something at home and you get in trouble and you getting that whooping in the next 5 minutes. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So it's one thing you come off the field and I forget who mentioned it. I think it was Ellis who mentioned it in his interview. He said, "Hey man, even Zimmer said, like, when we come off the field, make sure you come a little further down. Like, don't come directly at Zimmer, and we gonna shoot you off of what you did wrong."
Zimmer said that too in his interview. He said, "If you mess up, you come off the field. Don't come off the field next to me. Yes. You better come off the field over there." But that's the type of coach that he is, and I think that total defensive collapse that we saw under Dan Quinn, we're not gonna see that under Zimmer, because Zimmer's gonna be able to be that voice on the sideline, getting the players settled. Now, another thing, and I'm going to do a show on it, is about leadership, because we really do need more on-field leadership.
Yes.
For the offense and the defense. Right. Meaning when things aren't going right, we need more vocal, emotional leaders, because right now, pretty much the only one that you got is Dak. And in the game, Dak is focused on offense. He's not focused on the defense. There needs to be defensive leaders, but there also needs to be other offensive leaders that are helping Dak as well. That's why I'm glad that we got Zeke back. But even so, we need people to speak up on the field. I need to see emotion, not pouting. CD and Micah, love y'all.
Right. But not pouting. Too.
Your audio went out. Your audio went out.
Can you hear me? I can still hear you.
I can hear you now.
Okay. I was just saying D-Law too. When he kind of get out of the game, he starts soaking and leaning on the bench and sitting inside.
That's what I'm saying. We need somebody else, and so I'm really hoping that Micah really ascends and steps up. And I know that leadership has to be earned, and I'm hoping that Micah he's saying he's doing the work to be a leader. So we're going to see, because him and CD said that they were going to be these guys. So we're going to see. But also PZ, yes, Jake Ferguson. That's another a person that I'm hoping, and he was vocal in the playoffs, like, let's get it rolling. But we need that from the first snap. Can't wait till we down 27, then talking about let's get it rolling. Like, we need somebody that can help stop the bleeding while it's happening, So I just think that but it really is exciting just to see just a different style of coaching that's going to be brought through Mike Zimmer and through his staff. Jeff Sagonia, we didn't even talk about him, but he seems like, well, we did talk about him because he is like we said, he coached Washington's defensive line. But I think just having him in his mindset, he has just a different toughness, and he's a former player as well. That's what's good about him and Greg Ellis, Al Harris. All of these guys are former players.
Great point.
That can really bring something different to the current players, connect with them on that level, but also, just be able to understand the players more. Because I think, in the NFL, there's some old-minded, old-way coaches, and then they're kind of getting pushed out because, I talked to somebody online about this. It's like you gotta still be that hard coach, but these kids, they also need, you have to handle them differently than you handle the players of old, because they just not gonna respond to you how the older players would. You know what I'm saying? They're just not gonna respond. So you do have to find a way to connect with these players and get them to play for you. So that's gonna be a task of Zimmer.
Yeah, it's one thing if a coach can look at you and say, "Hey, this is your position. This is your job to do your job." Blah, blah, blah. Like a former player who is now a coach who can look at you and know what you're going through, know the feelings, how you feel going through your first game, how you feel going into the 5 games into your career. You know what I'm saying? That coach can look at you and say, "Okay, I know you're feeling this way, but do this," and still have that not harshness, but still have that coaching side of you. Also, you kind of get to know the human / player side of the players. Right. They can kind of connect on that level, and that way you can, you kind of meet that player on their level. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's what the players need. It's not babying. I know some people, the old generation may, so they need somebody to baby them. No, it's not babying. They still want to be coached hard. They still want to be held accountable. But they also need the coaches to kind of be able to understand where they're at. And for the younger generation, you have to earn their respect. You can't just come in and expect them to just respect you and reverence you. That's not going to happen. You have to earn that by the relationship that you build with them. Because those old hard coaching tactics, that's not how you're going to connect to this generation. It's just not. And you even look at somebody like Bill Belichick, the great Bill Belichick, all them Super Bowls and stuff. But I was watching just a video of Mayo, and you could just tell it's just a different feel with
the energy,
having him there. It's just a different energy, than you would have with Bill. Something that I saw, they were like Harbaugh. He's not allowing them to play any music during OTAs because he's trying to get them to focus. It's like, okay, we'll see if that works. I know that working. I don't know. I know you just won a championship in college, and I do know that you're a good coach. But it's like some of these old tactics and ways, I just don't know. So we gonna see if that works out. We're gonna see if that works out. But I think ultimately you gotta find a way to connect with these players, and you gotta find a way to actually get them to play for you, not talking at them. Don't talk at them, talk to them. D'Amico Ryans has earned the respect of the NFL. Yeah, I agree with that. I think D'Amico Ryans has earned a lot of respect from the NFL. And he's a player's coach. I mean, he's a former player. So it's a different thing. It's a different feel. A lot of NFL, they want these former players. What's his name?
I don't know if McDaniel was a former player, but maybe him being younger and kind of being able to relate a little bit more to the players.
Yeah, he's younger. He's not a former player, but somebody like Dan Campbell, that's a former player.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
They
get these players to play a different way,
Right.
So yeah, but we could talk about the receivers, sis, if you want.
Yeah. And actually, I really just brought this topic up because this week, and actually, I heard the subject again on Will Steele's morning show the other day about how ESPN, of course, they like to put out stories about the Cowboys, talking about Michael Thomas, possibly being on a team. And it just made me think, even after all this time, all these, I guess I'll say years, because it just in my opinion, it seems like, over the years, just like we were talking about, I think in our show last, or a couple weeks ago, that, they usually have a prime running back, but they don't have a number 2, running back. They have always a prime spot, a prime wide receiver 1. You see, they revved up CD all these years, but even back when they had Cooper, they did have, a supplemental receiver. They had Gallup, but he was young, and even when Gallup kind of came to his own, he wasn't, the dominant, second option. So even after us going going through the draft, after us bringing in UDFAs, like we're still looking. So even unfortunately with Topper, he's still young, still coming to his position. But even after last year, we're still saying, okay, he could possibly be a wide receiver 3. So I'm just like, even after all this time, we're still looking for that. Like we're talking about, even weeks ago on our show about having that number 2. All respect to Brandon Cooks, but the Cowboys aren't using him like how we thought they were going to use him. So even we're still looking for that number 2/number 3 punch at wide receiver. Like I'm just wondering, like, are Cowboys like inadvertently not going after, maybe it doesn't have to be a big name, but I know we drafted a Flournoy, but and brought in other guys once again, but even through the years, the Dennis Houston, what I'm saying, the other names that we would, Noah Brown, who we have to count on in other situations. It's just like we just never seem to pack that punch at wide receiver 2/3. Even that's bringing in Brandon Cooks was like a godsend for us Cowboy, for Cowboy Nation, because we never just had that punch. You know what I mean? So I'm just wondering if, like, are we able to find that second punch for CD? Is he always going to have that pressure to do it all himself?
Yeah, I mean, my thinking, on the wide receiver room is, and I had said this before the draft, I was like, our wide receiver room is one of the deepest on the team. And when it comes to Brandon Cooks, to me, we did use Brandon Cooks how he was used. Now, we didn't use him on screens, but I went back and watched his, like, plays from the Texans. And yeah, like, Brandon Cooks there was the deep ball guy, like deep crossers, corner routes, all of that stuff.
True.
I think, to be honest, guys, like, I think Brandon Cooks just lost a step. I think we just got him toward the end of his career. That's be the problem with the Dallas Cowboys. That's like when we got Gilly. And I like Gilly, and I appreciate everything Gilly gave us. And if they want to bring him back. I don't care at this point. But you can clearly tell they lost a step. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's the issue. It's like we want to bring these players in 2 to 3 years later than we should have brought them in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think with Cooks, he just kind of lost a step. I'm hoping that he can kind of, find his footing and really be a more reliable guy for Dak, because let's be honest, in the playoffs, Brandon Cooks shat the bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did not play well.
Yeah.
And we brought you here, Brandon Cooks, to help us. Unfortunately, Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore both did not play well.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, Gilly was hurt. I will say that. Gilly was hurt. I understand it's hard to play corner when you have one shoulder. I get all of that. But regardless, he did not play well. Brandon Cooks did not play well. Right. And Dak went to Brandon Cooks early and often, and it bit him in the behind. So it's going to be interesting. At this point, people talking about bringing in Michael Thomas or Treylon Burks. I don't think we're going to get any of those guys. I just don't see it. Those are like, unless they're willing to come here for a couple of dollars. But, Treylon Burks is still, I think, on his rookie deal, so you can trade for him. But Michael Thomas, that's a free agent you're going to have to pay. I don't know how much he wants, but I just feel like he's probably more in like a mercenary role where he's going to go to the highest bidder. So I really don't see us getting him. I think that, honestly, with the 2 young Jalens, and let me be honest, I was kind of out on Jalen Tolbert at first because I was like, nah, he was good, but he kind of struggled a little bit,
Not playing around, man.
But I changed my mind because I said, well, that was pretty much, last year was his rookie year. Yeah. Because his rookie year, he couldn't get on the field. So I was like, if that's his rookie year production, and he did show up in some big moments for Dak, and he did get better as the year went on, like, I think there's another gear, there's another step for him. And obviously, he's very determined. He's determined. He's been attached to Dak, at the hip. And so has Jalen Brooks. So it's going to be interesting, to see what these young guys can do. But we have other guys, you got Flournoy, you got Crooms, you got all of these. You got a lot of wide receivers to see, are any of y'all going to be able to step up? I do think that, they may add another wide receiver just because Mike McCarthy did say that today, that we are not done acquiring talent. So they may add another vet wide receiver. But to be honest, I want the young guys to win. You know what I'm saying? If we got to bring in another veteran for insurance, But I want these young guys to step up. I want these young guys to win. Jalen Tolbert, we drafted you a high draft draft pick. Now, Jalen Brooks, you were our 7th round draft pick, but we still saw some flashes from you last year. You know what I'm saying? So I think, wide receiver 3 / and another thing is if Ferg is the next Travis Kelce, that is our target too.
Yeah.
So if Ferg ascends to that level where he's unquestionably top 5 tight end, all pro bowler, then wide receiver 2, is we ain't that worried about that. They technically the 3rd target because it's gonna be CD, Ferg, and then whoever else. We just need whoever else who can win in that role, which I think Brandon Cooks or I feel like somebody's got to step up out of Brandon Cooks, Tolbert, Brooks, Turpin,
right, Moreno, Crawford,
Flournoy, Cruz, Crawford. Like that's 7. You're telling me?
I think Billy Johnston.
Billy Johnston. So you're telling me we got 8 guys in house right now, and none of them can step up?
Right.
To wide receivers. If that's the case, we got a big problem. If nobody can step up to be wide receiver 3 or 4 out of 8 wide receivers, we got a big problem on our hands. And we're going to have to really start questioning Will McClay because it's like, so you got us 8 bums?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So,
you know what I'm saying? And just to add on to your point, like, and even Robert McCarthy mentioned in his presser today that Tolbert's, you mentioned Tolbert, like he said he's done leaps and bounds, quote unquote, as far as his confidence. So, like you said, pairing that, say it was quote unquote his rookie year last year, and then you have, like you said, his confidence take a step up. He was already making plays before, so you just kind of put those, and like you say, like we mentioned in our show plenty of times before, how you just have the hunger in some of these guys who want that position. Like we always just kind of even from last year's training camp, from Cowboys Nation to McCarthy, they had the expectation that Tolbert's going to be wide receiver 3. Even when Gallup was here, they were saying that Gallup and Tolbert, they didn't come out outright and say it, but they were pretty much battling for that 3rd position. So in his mind, I'm sure Tolbert feel like that should be his position. So so with the hunger, with the want, with the confidence boost, so and actually having game time play, so like you mentioned, like but also like you mentioned with Jalen Brooks, like he made some great flashes, not just in camp, but further
in the season, in real life NFL games with the ones. So I definitely see him taking a step. There was somebody else that Aisha had said today, another wide receiver. I'm trying to see if we already mentioned him. Because I was like, damn, I'm like, it's going to be a all-out war for this wide receiver 2, 3, because we got so many dang wide receivers. Let me see.
I think there's another receiver, Cam Johnson. I don't know if he's still in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Cam Johnson. That was a free agent we added. I can't remember his name. Let me see if I can see who that was that she said. Trying to see.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, while you look him up, it's crazy. Like we mentioned all those, all those players that we do have, and even when you brought him up, Turpin, I'm like, man. Even though I'm sure he's going to be used more now in special teams, like we do still have that kind of like type of gadget player in Turpin who we can use to stretch the field if we do kind of get in.
Right, Turpin. He's so dynamic. Yeah, right. So it's Cropper. I think Jalen Cropper.
Oh, Cropper, yeah.
Jalen Cropper looked explosive out of his breaks. Chris released his strong hands playing the ball. Looks like he's looking to take a step as well. So everybody is. What you say?
And they say he's put on weight too.
Yeah, this is what I'm excited about because this is why I'm excited for the young guys. Like I see this year as this is another stepping stone. Like Jerry said, getting to where we want to get. It's like, are we going to win Super Bowl this year? I don't know. I can't say that. Does it feel like it? Probably not. But what I want to see is we just need to see progress, and I think we can truly get there with these young guys, with the young blood in the room, because it's just everybody, when all these players are pushing it, they are maxing out because they're like, I really have a chance. There's no guaranteed, oh, you got the spot. They're thinking I really have a chance to be on the field. Right. So all of these guys are maxing out because they want a starting position. They want to be able to prove themselves on prime time for the Dallas Cowboys.
Exactly.
And I feel like those older players that we had, they were just at the point where they are who they are. You know what I'm saying? But these young players, we don't know who they are yet. They're still developing. They still have, like we said, steps, ascension. They still have all those things. So, if Ferg takes another step, that's going to open up our offense to a whole nother level. Then you're talking about adding a running game, which we can kind of transition into that about, obviously we're going to be doing running back by committee. That was being confirmed by Mike Schottenheimer and Jeff Blasco. Yeah. And I think I was going to ask, like, who do you think is going to be like the leader, I guess, of the committee? Because I think Blasco said it's probably going to be splits like 40%, 40%, 20%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, when I hear that, I'm thinking, first of all, I do know that Zeke is going to be somewhere in the starting lineup with the first team. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, you don't bring Zeke back to be, you know what I'm saying? Even
to be he needs to be involved in every game plan. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. But my thing is, like, as far as like, and like you mentioned, like, I don't even know if we can look at it as far as running back, almost a wide receiver, running back 1, 2, possibly even 3, depending on how many they carry on game day. If they're talking about it could be split depending on, like you said, depending on number, or they said, depending on number 1, who they play and like what type of situations they're in. So my first thought was, okay, that possibly they could use, Rico in between the 20s, or, depending on how they want to get down the field. Maybe
different situational types of guys because, and it's all. Because right now you got Zeke, Royce Freeman, which Mike said today he's been impressed with Royce Freeman. He said Royce is bigger than he thought.
Yes.
Then you have Deuce,
and faster than he thought. He said.
Right. So you got Zeke, Royce Freeman. Then you got Deuce, who we know Deuce has been killing it. This offseason, he's obviously gained a lot of mass. Working on his pass catching. So then you got Deuce. Then you got Rico.
And you might have a chance to, I don't know if he's going to do returns, but they mentioned, I think,
Yeah, he was working on returns today, him and Turpin. So then you got Deuce. Then you got the young guy that we got from Missouri. Can't remember his name. But then you got him, Pete, Daniel Pete. And then you still got Hunter Lipke.
Yeah.
So you got 6. Yeah, I already said Rico. So that's 6 running backs. And I'm not even included. Malik Davis.
Right. Snoop Connor.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Snoop Connor. Yeah. So you got 8. And right now you got 8 running backs that are competing. So it's like we got so many guys with just like we don't know. So that's why I'm excited for training camp, because I'm like, it's really going to be a legit competition. Right. There's not, like I keep saying, that wall of players where you had all these players sitting out at preseason, that doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So now all these players are really playing. They got to play like their life depends on it.
Exactly.
And so I really like that. And they have a now, because they know, there's not a vet in front of me. Now, like I said, everybody can max out because they're like, why not me? Right. You know what I'm saying? Why not me? You know what I'm saying? So I just think that it's going to be real interesting. If I had to call it right now, I would say our 3 running backs is going to be Zeke, Hunter Lipke for sure, because Mike McCarthy, we're going to keep our fullback. I think we're implementing that really into the identity of our team. One thing I liked, sorry, it's kind of segueing, but one thing I kind of liked that Mike said today is he's like, last year we were in installation the entire year, because that's what a first year offense is. He said, but now we're not worried about installation. We've already now gotten a comb. through our plays and take those plays out that we don't like. And, we've really now we're in a whole different phase of our offense. So it's really going to be exciting. Right.
Yeah.
The whole mindset, right, it's just going to be totally different. So when you see how our offense performed in we're building year, you can only imagine what they're going to look like now that it's like, okay, everybody's settled in. We're not trying to see, does this play work? Does this play not work? We already know what works. We already know what we're going to do. So now we're just building out variations of our plays. And, so our offense is going to be able to run more smoothly. But if I had to call it right now, like, let's do, to end the show, let's do, I guess, some early predictions of who we think is going to take this, be the main guy. So I would say for the running backs, I would say it's going to be Hunter Lipke, Zeke, and then I would probably go ahead and say if I call it right now, I think I probably would say Deuce. I want to say those three guys, because if Deuce is going to start returning punts, that gets him on the field. You're a special teamer, because remember, when you're further back in the depth chart, you got to be able to contribute to special teams too. That's a big reason why Deuce was not on the field, because he didn't have a special teams role. But I think them working him at punt return and kick return means they want a role for him. So I would say Zeke, Hunter Lipke. If we carry 4, Rico.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
That was my fourth one too. Rico. Yeah,
if we carry 4, Rico for sure. Yeah. Royce Freeman, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I think Royce is probably going to be on the practice squad, and he's going to be our insurance in case something happens to Zeke. We could just put Royce in that role. But that's what I would have to guess on right now. What you think about it? Do you agree? You agree or you disagree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, and I kind of thought of it the same way. Like, number one, depends on how many they decide to carry, and just depending on, and that's just one thing that I think the competition will have a huge bearing, not just on the running back room, but all these rooms. Like we talked about, sis. Like, it's not just the running backs; it's the wide receiver we're talking about. It's the linebackers even. Like, I mean, we were dying of thirst for linebackers last year, so let's bring in.
Right, we got a lot of linebackers now.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you want to go through all the positions, or just some?
Yeah, I mean, not it don't have to be tonight. I figure we can do it week to week. You know what I'm saying? But like,
okay, that's cool. Yeah. So today we're just doing the running back. So running back.
I just think it's gonna be like, something towards the roster building. You know what I'm saying? Because they got to decide, like you mentioned, whether to carry 3 or 4 running backs. Because then you got to decide, okay, how many linebackers we're gonna keep? How many of these wide receivers are we gonna keep?
What's up, Carl? Exactly. So it's going to be it's going to be really interesting to see who we're going to carry more of. I do think this year, if we're really adamant about running the ball, I do think Mike's going to try to carry 4 running backs, maybe.
Right.
3 tight ends. Let's do the running back. Who you think is going, because the tight end room is, I put on Twitter, I said, I think we may have the best tight end room in the league.
Because since they also said that it could depend on who they're facing too. So if you're going up against a team that you may have to run more against, say like the Lions, or we face some pretty tough teams. So maybe early in the season, if we're really trying to stick to and run the ball, like you said, depending on, they may have to go with maybe 3 running backs. But like you just mentioned, how many tight ends do you bring up? Because we do have I think his name a Spanford, Brevin Spanford. Yes, he's
Spanford. He gonna be on the team, because we not putting him on the practice squad. He's gonna be a highly coveted. He was a highly coveted undrafted free agent. We had to pay a lot of money to get him. He's making the roster. Making the roster. So I think the 3 tight ends, it's gonna be Ferguson, Brevin Spanford.
I think Stevens. I think
Stevens too, because they said Stevens put on a lot of weight.
We love you, but Now you got Brevin that they done brought in. Like you was already fighting it, and almost like you was already fighting it for seasons.
You know what I think they're gonna do with Scoon, sis? Because they're not gonna want to cut him because he's a beloved draft pick.
Right.
I think they're gonna say he got. I think they're gonna put him on the injured reserve list. I think they're gonna put him on IR because the man is hurt again. I'm like, this man is a walking injury.
Ball type players, like who just, I mean, not
right, exactly. Yeah,
keep him around.
He's gonna be put on IR. Yeah, they're gonna keep him around because he's a second round draft pick. They're not gonna cut him, but they're gonna put him on IR. And I think we're gonna be rolling in with Ferg, Brevin Spanford, John Stevens. I think those are gonna be our 3 tight ends. That's a nasty tight end room.
Right, like I'm saying, Zeke kind of they pick up the pass pro. You know what I'm saying? So this is another line of defense for Dak. You know what I'm saying? And then we got like you mentioned these young guys coming in, and we hadn't even touched the O line room. Like when we do that show, sis, like talk about competition. Like they're gonna be
it's a lot of competition. It's a lot of competition for your swing guard and your swing tackle. Right, and also the center position because they're trying BB Hoffman and TJ Bass all at center. Only one can win that position.
Come on now, you know what I'm saying? Like
then you need your swing guard. Who, if Zach Martin or Tyler Smith go down, who are you putting in? So it's definitely going to be competition for sure.
Yes.
In that offensive line room, but I think we can save the offensive line, defensive line, for another show. But so y'all heard it here first. Star and Mickey's picks.
Yes,
because we're gonna revisit this once the season starts. But
this roster, like when it comes down, like, y'all thought it was gonna be whittling down before, but like Star continues to mention she's really the one who I've heard, not the only one, of course, who talked about it, but she's always talked about this the wall that's always been there. The starters who have always had that promised spot at the beginning of the season. So these young guys have always had they only had the time to step up when injuries occur, unfortunately. So now within all these rooms, all these guys are gonna have a chance to get their spot at a particular position. So this roster is gonna be. It's gonna be hell when these guys have to cut down. And it used to just be week by week, but now when they have to cut these maybe 15.
It's gonna be that. That's exactly right. I'm like, I feel bad for the coaches because how do you evaluate? It's so many players to evaluate. You have to really evaluate.
Facts.
Because that wall is gone. There's no this veteran. You got to really evaluate. That's a lot of evaluations.
Yes.
And then they talk about they adding more competition.
You know what I'm saying? Like, come on.
That's what I said. Like the hidden word this year is competition because I think we are tired of. We're tired of the Dallas soft narratives. We're tired of getting bullied. We're tired of we can't win every time we face a tough team. We face Baltimore, we can't win. 49. We're tired of that. We're tired of getting ran on. We're tired of getting ran on. We need sound, fundamental dogs, top to bottom. And so I think that's what the coaches are looking for. That's why I think they made this focus for this season. Competition. Get the old guys out of there. Let these young guys compete and may the best man win.
I agree with you, sister. It's almost just like they kind of flipped it on his head. Like instead of us trying to change out the players, instead of changing out the pieces that we're playing with, why not change out the mental part of it? Like these guys have the physical down. We see these guys and we hear talk about all the time position plays. Okay, we bring in guys who can play. Like McCarthy mentioned, the guys who can do more than one thing. So we bring in guys who can do more than one thing. We have guys who we put in different positions to do more than one thing. So how much more can we do? Okay, so we have the players. Let's change the mindset. Let's change the philosophy. Let's change, from the
exactly. Top. Let's change the mindset. Let's change the philosophy.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, those guys we let go. Y'all soft as Sharma. We had to let you go. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
The only
the guys they let go was comfortable. They were comfortable.
They was very comfortable. They knew they would start. They knew they was gonna be in the lineup no matter what. It's like at some point they just stopped trying to elevate. They stopped trying to take steps to get better because they just knew you know, I got it. You know what I'm saying? And that was a big part of Dan Quinn's favoritism. They knew before the season kicked off, they knew I'm going to be in the lineup. Like, I'm not worried about it.
Right.
And so I'm glad that we got those guys out of here. You know, get out of here.
And you heard Coach Z talk about in his interview, like even with D Law, we're trying to find ways we can still up his game, even 10 years into the game.
D Law, right? It's like everybody should be trying to get better.
Exactly.
You should be trying to get better.
Exactly.
And those guys that we let go, it's like y'all wasn't trying to get better. Y'all just was like, this is who I am. This is what I got to offer, and that was it. You know, and part of that was Dan Quinn's fault because he's the coach, and your players are a reflection of you. But I'm glad that we got those guys out, and I'm happy that we're improving. You know, like I said, we may not win the Super Bowl this year, but I don't care about that because I just want to see a total mental change for this team. Because we've had some dogs here, some dogs there, but it's like you need kind of dogs everywhere if you really want to get to where you're going. Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, like, the coaches play a huge part, but at the end of the day, as a player, like, you have to have a certain mindset that I'm not going to get bullied. I'm not going to get pushed off the ball. Mm-hmm. And the players that we let go, a lot of them didn't have a mindset, or they just didn't even have the physical capabilities. Like Tyler Biadasz, I always said he is a good center, but he just didn't have the capabilities to run what we want to run. He doesn't have the capabilities to run power football. That's just not him. You know what I'm saying? And we tried, but it's just not him. So we wish him the best. You know, he's playing for Washington now, but we had to get stronger. We had to get bigger in the middle. Because that's something that we've lacked since 2016. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. But anyways, guys, I think that's a good stopping point. We gave y'all about an hour and almost 15 minutes of content. So, before we let out, y'all please like this video. Please like the video. Please share. Yeah, please share. Please subscribe to.
Retweet. Follow us if you're not following us. Follow us on YouTube, not just Twitter. Follow us on Twitter/X. Right. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. I believe all our handles are the same. Cravin Cowboys for me. Of course, my girl. Yeah,
my StarGazer YouTube Star. You can find. I put it down. All my links to my social medias are down below. So. In the description section. So definitely follow us, guys. You know, Mickey and I, we both trying to grow our channels, give you guys, content, give you guys a different perspective. I think we're the only, not the only women content Cowboys creators, because there's obviously others, but we're the only one that are doing right now a collaboration. So just help us out, guys, and also y'all can donate to our Cash Apps. Mine is $ StarGazerSports. Mickey, what's yours?
Yeah, my Cash App is $MPCox90. Yeah, so just like Star was saying, we just trying to grow our channels. Every dollar helps. Like Star's new show. I don't know if you guys checked out Star's new show. Y'all gotta check. Just that intro and outro alone, y'all. Y'all missing out. Like I don't know if y'all peeped yet, but y'all need to peep my girl's new show because I'm doing it all the time. And just to get in that, it's not even the first look. I tell that time the first couple of minutes not even football related. Let us talk about that, okay? And y'all be hyped to listen to anything my girl got to say. So y'all make sure y'all tune in, all right? But
I appreciate that.
Like Star said, awesome show tonight. Thank you guys for spending your time with us. We really appreciate you guys. Like she said, look to us in the future. Like I said, we're going to break it down each one of these rooms, leading up through minicamp, training camp, OTAs, things like that, just breaking down who we think is going to be the starters. And hopefully you guys, ride with us along the way. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for spending your time with us. And thank you everybody coming through in the chat, supporting, putting you guys' words in. We really appreciate you guys.
Yep. You guys have a good night.
All right, y'all. Peace out. We'll catch y'all next time.